Welcome to the Game or Die podcast. I am your host, Ryan Moore, and this is episode 36. So, my life has been really crazy the last month and a half or so. Since the last time I did this podcast, basically, I have sold our house and we have moved out of our house because it is completely sold. We no longer live in the mountains, which is a bummer because now it's winter time and now it's starting to snow, which is a bummer because I love the snow. Snow is one of my favorite things of pretty much anything ever. But alas, it's not meant to be. So we have moved. I have driven across the entire country 3 separate times, driving there and back, and then driving there and then flying back in the last about 3 weeks or so. So it's been very, very hectic, very exhausting, and also working and just dealing with life in general. So it's been an exhausting couple of weeks and months. And sadly, I have not had a lot of time to play a lot of video games. I have played some here and there, and that's kind of why I wanted to do this episode now, so I don't forget about it. And I also just wanted to do something. Unfortunately, since I don't have my audio booth set up anymore, and I don't have any of my recording equipment with me, that is both in California and Tennessee. So basically everything I own is split in between 3 or 4 separate different areas across the country. And I am just using a crappy Logitech headset mic for recording this. But hey, that's fine. Couple of episodes of a podcast to be able to do it, even if it's not the best audio ever, I think that's probably a little bit okay. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about the games that I have had time playing and I was able to get a hold of. And this is one thing that I do want to go on just a tad bit of a rant here. I have, since basically the PlayStation 2, have had every single game every single game system at launch. The last game console launch, the main ones, were in 2013 with the PS4 and the Xbox One. I got both of those on launch day through Amazon, and it was wonderful. It was a really fun time period. The reason why is because I was able to play games and also watch all the coverage from places like Giant Bomb and a bunch of other people that I was following at the time on YouTube and things like that. They were all doing launch streams, and it was super fun to be a part of. I remember one of my favorite things is when I got the PS4, I was still doing, GameFly at the time. And GameFly basically allowed you to rent a couple games. So I rented some PS4 games. I believe it was Need for Speed Rivals and, there was another game. I can't remember what it was. But the only game that I actually bought at launch for my PS4 was Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And I don't remember if I've talked about Assassin's Creed Black Flag at all on this podcast, but if I haven't, Black Flag is definitely my favorite Assassin's Creed game. It's pirate based and all that. And if you know anything about me, pirates are my favorite thing. So I loved that game. I devoured that game. Basically, I played about maybe an hour of Need for Speed Rivals on launch day, and then I played a little bit of something else. I can't remember what else I rented at that time. And I played a little bit of that, and then I put Black Flag in on launch day night. I was like, all right, I played a couple of these games. I've watched some, Giant Bomb coverage and stuff like that. I'm ready to kind of sit down and sink my teeth into a game that I've been looking forward to. And I started playing Black Flag that night, maybe that afternoon, maybe after dinner or something like that. I stayed up until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And then I literally did not stop playing Assassin's Creed for an entire week until the Xbox launched, because they will launch 1 week from each other. So the first entire week after the PlayStation 4 launched, that's all I played. I didn't even put in the other discs that I rented because I loved Black Flag so much. And that was super fun. And then when the Nintendo Switch came out with Breath of the Wild, basically I was able to play that, pretty much straightforward. And it was really fun because I just was newly married. My wife and I played Breath of the Wild. We loved it. That was our game of the year that year. It was just awesome. And again, launch day coverage of new systems is super, super fun. So fast forward to now, the Xbox One Series X and the PlayStation 5 have now officially launched. They've been out for about a week, a little over a week and a half, somewhere around there. And sadly, because of everything going on, everyone's sitting at home and able to hit F5 until things launch. I was not able to procure a PS5 or an Xbox Series X. They are sold out. They're impossible to find, and scalpers have been scalping them online like they normally do. This is nothing new, but it's still a huge bummer. So I can't do anything with the new consoles. And it was really a big bummer because of moving to, it's just so stressful and everything that I wanted something fun to enjoy. But I have no space to do that. I don't have a house to enjoy that. I don't have the money to spend on a bunch of frivolous items. I can't get a PS5. I can't get an Xbox One. I can't get a RTX card. It's just pretty much everything is kind of feeling like, this is kind of a big bummer. So really, really big bummer for me to not be able to play that new stuff, any of the new console coverage. I just haven't had time to even watch that stuff. I was literally driving several thousand miles across the country back and forth over the last couple of weeks. So I haven't even had time to watch other people enjoy these consoles. But that being said, I was able to dig my PS4 out of the moving boxes and storage because I didn't really think ahead, and flew back with my PS4 in my backpack and hooked it up and downloaded the only game that I really even was wanting to pay attention to for launch coverage, which is the new Spider-Man game on PlayStation. And it's kind of a bummer because, again, there's a lot of bummers right now, but it's not a main Spider-Man game. It is a offshoot. It's a side story type game. It's a spin-off. It is like what other people are saying. They're comparing it to, which is basically Infamous First Light and Uncharted Lost Legacy, where these are smaller contained games. They're not as full-fledged and big as full retail releases, but they are video games that you can buy that have a new story to them and things like that, new characters. So back in 2018, when Spider-Man came out for the PS4, it was all about Peter Parker, but there was a, side story, B plot that Miles Morales was also another Spider-Man. He got bit by a spider and all that fun stuff. At the end of the game, you find out, hey, Miles and Peter are talking and talking about being another Spider-Man. And that's kind of where they left it from what I remember. It was literally over 2 years ago since I played it. So this game, I actually said, you know what, screw this. I'm going to buy it for the PS4. And I bought it digitally, which why wouldn't you at this point? Everything should be digital. And what's really cool about that is it's cross-buy. So I buy the PS4 digital version and I get the PS5 digital version unlocked on my account. So whenever I do get a PS5, I am able to play that on my PS5. This is the thing with me in video games, though. I usually only play video games once through. I never, ever play through a video game a secondary time unless it's designed to be that way. And that's like the main core, like a run-based game or something like that. Or if it is one of my favorite games, like Psychonauts. Psychonauts would be one where I would want to play through it every once in a while, every 5 years or so. So I've played through Psychonauts about 3 times now. But I wanted to play this game, and I wanted it something to just grab hold of and enjoy, since life is kind of just all crazy and up in the air and very stressful. So last week, I basically played through in 2 days the Spider-Man Miles Morales game on my PS4. And it was fine. It was more of that Spider-Man formula that they started with the PS4 game. The combat is all the same. Everything is the same. The level is the same. You got big New York City to swing around in. It's still really fun. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't blown away with it because it is, again, a very similar experience as the first one. It's kind of like BioShock 1 and 2. BioShock 1, you're blown away because it's brand new. BioShock 2 is a better game, in the aspect of the way the combat feels, the mechanics, the powers, level design. The story itself is actually really interesting too. Probably not as good as the first one, maybe, but it is not new. So you don't have that newness to basically wow you. So that's what I felt with Spider-Man Miles Morales was that it's not new, it's not as exciting, but it's still solid. I personally don't care about Miles Morales as much as Peter Parker. That may be something to say because I grew up with Peter Parker. I hated the Clone Saga with Ben Reilly and things like that. So Peter Parker was always the Spider-Man for me. Miguel O'Hara, I believe his name is, the Spider-Man 2099, never really cared about as well. But Miles Morales has definitely shot up in the ranks of exposure thanks to the PS4 game, and also thanks to the Into the Spider-Verse movie, which is hands down definitely the best Spider-Man movie, especially animated, which was great. It was a really good movie, but I'm just not as drawn to that character. I'm 35 years old. I don't really care about kids in high school and their problems with being accepted and all this crap, so that aspect of Miles Morales is just not grabbing me as much because I just don't have as much in common with that character as something like Peter Parker, where he's a lot older. He's dealing with, trying to figure out how to be married and, figure out life. He's an older-ish character, depending on, what time frame you're talking about in that character's comic book life. But it was a good game. The combat is solid. It's super fun still. They just didn't do enough for me to really, grab hold of this game and cling to it and be excited about it as much as I wanted to. It's another Spider-Man game. It's an offshoot. And what I really thought when I was playing through this game is it kept coming back to this thought of, this is what the DLC should have been. The DLC should have put you into Miles's, actual shoes and been that Spider-Man. Because the DLC for the PS4 Spider-Man game was basically, here's some side quest stuff with Black Cat, here's some side quest stuff with Silver Sable, but none of it was really fleshed out all that much. The Black Cat stuff was better than the Silver Sable stuff. I've never liked Silver Sable. But it is what it is. It's not that big of a deal, but it was just never something very memorable or eye-catching. But this is way more interesting because they do take time to flesh out the characters a little bit more. That being said, since I was not interested in those characters as much, and they're cribbing too much from different forms of Spider-Man, that it just kind of felt like there wasn't enough editing to it. They're trying to take from the Marvel Spider-Man cinematic universe with, his friend and his friend knows he's Spider-Man, so he's helping him out. He's the quote unquote guy in the chair. I hate that phrase, but that's what kind of everyone understands at this point. And then he's trying to have his mom not find out his identity and all this stuff, which we've seen a billion times in Spider-Man, normal Peter Parker Spider-Man stuff, but also with those Tom Holland movies, which are good too. I love those. I think they're fantastic as well. But you also have things that are cribbing from the Into the Spider-Verse movie as well. One of the quote unquote villains in this is Prowler. And it's his uncle, Aaron Davis. They use the same character names. And I do remember Prowler from, the comics and also the animated series way before in the 90s. And Prowler was not, some guy's uncle or whatever. It was totally a different character. So they're taking that Into the Spider-Verse movie and using a lot of the characters and familiarity that people have with those characters and shoving them into this other universe. And so basically you have the Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man, like the Tom Holland and stuff. You have the Sony Spider-Man Cinematic Universe with the Venom character, and Into the Spider-Verse. And then you have Sony's video game universe, which, is the first game and this game. And so all three of them are kind of mixing and melting and kind of getting in each other's universes. And it's a little bit too confusing for what it needs to be. So I was a little hesitant on really liking this because of that. The gameplay is fun. Swinging around New York City is just as fun as ever. But I already did that. That's the main catch in all of these Spider-Man games is how good is the web swinging. Spider-Man 2 on the original Xbox was the one that grabbed everyone and made everyone love it so much. But it's been done to death in all the other Spider-Man games. And this new one came out a couple years ago and it kind of rejuvenated that. And it was like, this web swinging feels really good again. But it's just the same. This is only 2 years after. So it's the same game engine, same assets, just a little bit updated visuals because of the leap in technology for the PS5. And that is also one of the issues with this PS4 version is near the end, I definitely did have a lot of slowdown in cutscenes where it basically, I thought the game froze, but the audio kept playing, but the screen itself froze, dropping into single digits or just freezing completely for 5-10 seconds, somewhere around there. I also had a crash. The video game actually crashed in the middle of the final cutscene, which was a huge bummer. And I've never had that happen before. Mainly because I very rarely ever play my PS4 anyways, but I was kind of really pissed off about that because it was the final cutscene, crashed, and then I loaded the game right back up and it said that I had corrupted game data. My save game was corrupted. And I was like, well, it's a final cutscene, and if my game data is corrupted and they're going to make me load back several hours, I'm never playing this game again. Luckily, there was an auto save from the end of the boss fight, the final boss fight. So I loaded that up, replaced the corrupted save data, and was able to watch the final cutscene. I got 100% in the game too. I did all the side quests and all the collectibles and everything like that, which I really did enjoy. And since I got 100%, I probably will never play the game again. So getting that PS5 digital version on my account as well. So when I do get a PS5, I can download it and play it. Doesn't really mean a whole lot to me because I'll probably never play it again. It's not that good. It's definitely what feels like a launch game for a system where it's fine. But, when you look back on it a year later after, people are able to get the system and then also be able to have a little bit more lead time into game development for devs, the game itself is not going to be as fantastic as it is right this second, which is still, again, a little bit lackluster. But I did complete it. I had fun with it for what it was. It's a bummer that it was $50 instead of the $40 because everyone just said, oh, devs need more money and blah, blah, blah. But it's the same game and it performs bad. Like I said, this is not something that we should be jumping out of our seats to give more money to devs for the same product that we would have gotten anyways. It's not going to help the development at all. It's only going to line the pockets of, the CEOs that, these games are now retailed price at $70 instead of $60. And again, previous generations were also $50. So the price of games keep jumping up, and the quality of games, yes, they do get better as technology advances, but you're still getting a lot of very bare bones games. And this should have been priced at $40. I personally think it should have been priced at $30 because that's about as much as I would be willing to pay for this game. It's good. It's just not that good. I had fun with it, but if I got this on the PS5 and this was my PS5 game, it's not going to hold my attention like Black Flag did. Black Flag was phenomenal in the storytelling, the way it changed up the Assassin's Creed gameplay a little bit, with the free roaming aspect much more. It was like, man, this is a game that you want to play on a new generation console. I don't have the PS5, so I can't really speak to how good it looks, but it looked fine on my TV, but I wasn't blown away with it, and I don't think I would be if I had a PS5. So it's a good game. It's just not worth $40 or $50. I'd say it would be worth $30 or $40 at max. And there's definitely some propaganda stuff because it is Miles Morales, and it's trying to be very we don't want anyone to be offended, so it's got to be all inclusive and all this stuff. And it just seems very, very shallow and very easy to see. They're trying for propaganda. They are trying to be all inclusive, but that doesn't mean anything because it's all just, manufactured inclusivity and things like that. And it's just like, man, if you're a sucker, and you buy into that, you're a chump. But it's a fine game. It's just, man, I really wish that they would have put this as the DLC instead of what we got for the DLC a couple years ago, because the DLC for the original PS4 Spider-Man game was just not great at all. But that is my Spider-Man game that I've been playing. I did get to play a little bit of Watch Dogs Legion. I played about 6 to 8 hours of that game, somewhere around there. I'm not really sure. I can't remember. It was about 3.5 weeks ago at this point that I played it. And I haven't really touched it since because of moving. And then also I played a little bit. I played about 2 hours of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And I will definitely say thank you, Ubisoft, Uplay Plus, or whatever they're calling it now, Connect Plus, or whatever dumb acronym or thing, because being able to pay $15 and get both Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Watch Dogs Legion to be able to play that without having to spend, $120 or whatever it is to play those games, I can play through a good chunk of it and then come back to it and pay another $15 maybe a couple months later on and finish those games up, hopefully, and not have to buy it, because I won't go back to those games. They're not good enough. And when they are good enough, because that's the way kind of Ubisoft stuff goes, I will be able to buy them at a much cheaper rate. I'm trying to be a little bit more self-conscious with spending, especially with buying a house and all that fun stuff. But that is 2 games that I think were fine. Again, nothing spectacular, nothing mind-blowing. But hey, they're a new Assassin's Creed, a new Watch Dogs game. Watch Dogs 2 was fantastic. I don't think Legion is anywhere near as good as Watch Dogs 2. I think the storyline is really, so far, kind of stupid and not interesting at all. I think having the protagonist be everyone is stupid as well, because you don't get attached to any single character because they're all going to die eventually anyways, and you're just going to swap out and swap out and swap out. So it doesn't really make there's no character development. There's no interesting thing about the character, but the gameplay is solid. I'm having fun doing collectibles and all that fun stuff, just like I normally do with those types of games. Valhalla is another game where it's just like, I don't care about the character at all. I think Origins with the Magi was way more interesting of a storyline than Odyssey. Cassandra was a great character as well, but she was the only good part of that game. And this seems to be more of that, where it's like, here's a kind of very bland, kind of pointless character that you play as, but the environment is really cool. So I do like the environment so far, but like I said, I've only gotten a couple hours into it, not enough to really give a solid opinion on. Other than that, that's kind of what I've been playing. I haven't really had too much time for it, so this is definitely going to be a shorter episode. I've been watching a lot of movies. I basically watched all 4 of the Indiana Jones movies while driving across the country, and also the Back to the Future trilogy, because I drove by myself and I had to have something going on in the background. So I listened to a lot of music, and then I watched a bunch of movies using my phone and my Plex server and Netflix and things like that. So that was fun to be able to watch / listen to all 4 Indiana Jones movies, which I have not seen since when I was way younger. And then I only watched the Crystal Skull movie, the 4th movie, in the theater the one time, and then that was it. So basically, at least revisiting that movie was interesting. I definitely don't think it's a very good movie, but it's there is not a ton of awful things. It's just kind of a crappy movie. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I do think that last part where it was just, the big bad is aliens, and it's just like, man, come on, aliens versus like, historical artifacts and things like that have supernatural powers are much more interesting. And then also the Back to the Future movies I just loved with a passion, so that was always enjoyable, and that killed a lot of time / made the time go by a lot quicker. And then I also watched the Death Wish movies. There's 5 of them, and I got through 3 of them with my dad. My dad and I were talking about them in the car while we were driving around looking at houses and stuff in Tennessee. And my dad was like, oh man, we should watch those. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So I got them on my Plex server, and we started watching Death Wish 1 and the Death Wish 2 and the Death Wish 3. Really, really interesting, because I haven't seen a lot of Charles Bronson stuff. And oh boy, those movies, they are intense. There's some definitely bad scenes in there that you don't want to watch with your parents or anyone really. It's graphic, man. It's very upsetting. But other than that, they're really fun revenge movies that often have one dude, just basically one-man army killing a bunch of people. And it's just great action. So that is kind of what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. And I'm just going to leave it there for now. I'm sorry the audio quality is terrible, but like I said, I'm just using a gaming headset mic for this episode, and maybe another one around Christmas time. And hopefully after Christmas, for the end of the year stuff, I can at least have some better audio quality. But that's it for now. And thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I have been your host, Ryan Moore. If you want to follow more of my writing, I do have the Game or Die website, gameordie.net, where I do write-ups for movies and, reviews and just kind of what I've been doing in general and giving more thoughts. I did a Miles Morales review, which I go into more detail on some of the good stuff about that game, and also some of the stuff I didn't really care for. But that's going to do it for this episode. It's a shorter one for sure, but at least I can record something before I have to head back out and go out of town later tonight. But that's going to do it. Thank you very much for listening, and I will catch you next time.